Good morning, good morning, good morning. Good morning to you. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Good morning to you. And invite a friend. Good morning to you. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. I hope everybody is doing well. Welcome to Daring Dialogues. I am your host, Shantae Charles. And 40 makes you forget things. But we thank God for the Holy Spirit that will bring things back to your remembrance. So today is Relationship Wednesday. And a couple of reminders. Reminder number one. Good morning. Reminder number one, if you would like to send me articles, okay? Some of you know how to reach me through my inbox on Facebook. I appreciate articles being sent there. My only request is that you check the Daring Dialogues page before you see an article. Because many of the articles I'm getting right now are things that I have shared on Daring Dialogues weeks ago. So I appreciate people wanting to share articles, keep me up to date, let me know, hey, this is going on. Do you know about it? But if you go to my Facebook page, Daring Dialogues, and look there first, you might already see the article there. All right. So that'll save you some time shooting me an article. It might already be on the page. So that's always a good thing. Profit. The other piece of that is I do not check my inbox messages until usually right before or right after Daring Dialogues, simply because I don't really want to get distracted from the topic at hand. All right. So if you're sending me things like in the middle of the night, for those who know me a little bit better than others, if you're sending me things in the middle of the night, I'm probably not going to look at it or read it until the next day. Just because, again, I don't want to get sidetracked by what I'm supposed to be focused on for the broadcast. All right. And if I see it's an article or if I see it's something that you've actually shared a link with me for that can be shared broader, I will share it. But many times, people, when you send things through inbox, it comes with no link. And so you cannot share it outside of an inbox besides forwarding the message to someone else. All right. I teach a whole class on that, by the way, which is still available online. You can get it for $10. I teach you about Facebook, Facebook, blogging, and YouTube, how to start your own YouTube channel and go live. And the class is only $10. You can always email me at reachshante@gmail.com if you want to purchase the class. It's about 90 minutes of teaching for $10. You can't beat that. You're not going to find that anywhere. And the information can help you to start your own channel and create additional revenue and income for yourself. All right. So that's that. I want to make sure I am getting all messages out of the way. If you're part of the We Dare Squad, good morning, love. If you're part of the We Dare Squad, I am getting your final packages together for December. You should be getting those within the next week or so because I'm still putting together some treats for you. So I'm actually out looking for things. All right. So if you're part of that, and if you want to see what it takes to become a part of the We Dare Squad for 2019, again, you can email me at reachshante@gmail.com. Subject title, We Dare Squad, how do I join? Okay? All right. Trying to make sure I have not forgotten. Oh, this is an important message. She's not on here right now, but I do want to thank um, Lady Apostle Brooks for her choosing to how can I put it, to partner with me in terms of my music. She is actually decided to partner with me and utilize my music for her new group. It's called Salak Healing Group, TSALACH Healing Group, and it's a Facebook group specifically designed for people who need soul healing. And with that, she has chosen to utilize my for the group. And so anyone that signs up with her for that group, they will get a free download of one of my songs. So I want to say a shout out to Lady Brooks for doing that, for choosing to support independent artists and independent music, because that is a huge deal. And so I just want to say thank you to her. Also, if you want to know how to get my music, email me at reachshantae@gmail.com and I will shoot you a link for purchase. It's also available on Google Play, AutoTunes, Spotify, Amazon Music, and you can get it on the site digitally, or you can order a physical copy. All right. Yes, I do appreciate Kingdom people working together, supporting one another. It's an awesome feeling. So, today is relationships, and we're back in the labor of love. And believe it or not, we are almost through with this book. So, because this is our only book for Wednesdays now, hopefully we should be able to finish it before this season is up. Right now, we have been talking about plans. We've been talking about the biological clock, right? This whole notion that was introduced, ironically, by a white male about women having a biological clock. But studies have also shown that it's not just women that have this biological clock, that men also have it as well. And then the other day, I stumbled upon a little clip from a Steve Harvey show where he was talking and giving relationship advice. Now, normally, I wouldn't send anyone to Steve Harvey for relationship advice because he's entertainment. It's an entertainment show. But he actually said something to the young lady that was very important, because she was talking about issue of breaking up with her fiance because he said that he needed more time. Like, so they were engaged and they were about to get married, and then they called off the wedding portion because he said that he wasn't ready. And so she broke up with him altogether because he said he was not ready to make that final permanent jump. And so Steve Harvey said something that I think was very important that I don't think people have ever said. So he might want to actually coin what he said, because he said women may have a biological clock, or they may feel something inside of them telling them that time is running out. But he said men have a financial clock. And I thought that was powerful, because I don't think I've ever heard anybody say that particular phrase, that men have a financial clock, meaning that there are certain things that they want to accomplish in life financially before they take on the relationship, before they take on the spouse. And so they might. There are some men that might be saying, I want to get married, but I want to make sure I have my finances in order. I want to make sure I have a home that I can bring her to. I want to make sure that I have my financial future set. Now, I'm going to put that in terms of Black America. If you look at what is happening in Black America, the statistics show that financially, men always increase financially by marrying a Black woman. Some of you all knew that, all right? But according to the research, men who are looking to get married always wind up doing better financially marrying a Black woman. I'm going to just let that marinate for some of y'all. Men always do better financially marrying a Black woman, Because right now, financially, overall, black women are increasing in their economy. They're increasing in terms of business, the number of businesses they own, the number of small business loans they can get. They're increasing in the number of educated black women. Okay, so all of those statistics, all of those factors help when you're talking about building a financial future. Building a financial future. One more time. Building a financial future. So if you're an African American male who has been dealing with the issue of your financial clock, it would actually be more advantageous for you to actually marry, because that would help you build your financial side faster, because you have a partner that is doing well or just as well as you are. All right. For other cultures, that may not be the case, but it is almost always the case for the African American male that it benefits him to get married. Does that make sense? Now, you don't have to take my word for it. You can actually go and look at the articles on it, research African American women's wealth, and you'll see all of the articles that are and the research that is now being done showing that the largest kind of growing wealth group in the United States right now is African American women. So it should not surprise you, all right, that other cultures are now gravitating towards relationships with African American women. Okay? Does that make sense? All right, moving on. So while on one hand, you have this picture being painted, on one hand, you have this picture being painted with black males, you have this perception being given to them that black women aren't anything. All right. While that perception is being given to the black male, because I've been reading some of these comments that black men have been saying about black women, while that perception is being given to them and they're buying into that perception, you have a whole other group of people who are actually looking at facts and research and statistics, and they know the opposite. So, black men, I'm going to encourage you not to be duped out of connecting with your counterpart. Because I'm going to say it one more time. Black men almost always do better or increase financially by marrying their counterpart. Now, let's get back into this book. For those of you who are interested in getting the book, if you came in late, it's called Labor of Love by Mara Wago, The Invention of. And again, I've been giving you kind of a review of all the topics that we've covered. I won't do that today for the sake of time. But now we're talking about plans, studies, research. Fertility treatments is where we stopped. So that's where we're going to continue the conversation. It's been a large conversation around that now, at least since Lady Michelle Obama has written about it in her book about going through IVF treatment to have her children. So let's continue to see what they're talking about with this. We also talked last time, as we pick up here, about the price of something like IVF. They're trying to make it more accessible and more affordable to a larger range of women, but the reality is this is more so for women that have the money to be able to afford these kind of procedures. So again, as African American women's income rises, and some people are not pursuing them, and many of them do want children and they do want a family in the future, African American women are now more financially in a position to have the IVF procedure done, whether they have a spouse or not. This is the reality, gentlemen. So let's continue to read. Like IVF, egg freezing was developed for a specific purpose. Young female cancer patients who had to undergo chemotherapy or surgery sometimes elected to freeze their eggs before doing so in order to protect the quality of their egg and protect their future seed from the cancer treatment, the cancer ordeal. So it was initially put out there for a medical reason, as is many of these procedures. But then once the procedure is rolled out, everyone kind of jumps onto the opportunity whether they have a medical need or not. Okay? In recent years, clinics have started offering the experimental treatment as an option for healthy women too. Indeed, they encourage women to freeze their eggs as early as possible. If you can afford it, why not buy yourself some time? The logic has convinced some of America's most successful corporations. In 2012, when Google, Facebook, and Citibank announced that they were considering covering up to $20,000 of the cost of egg freezing as a health benefit for their female employees, many people touted this move as a miracle fix for the gender inequality that continues to plague corporate workplaces. So, what were they offering? They were saying, if you come work at our corporations, that's really going to cost you a lot of time because of the amount of time that you're going to be investing in working in these companies. We will give you an incentive to come work for us by paying part of your cost to freeze your eggs. So if you want to have children later, after you're done working yourself to the bone for our tech companies, then you'll be able to do so. So they saw this as a benefit. A Time magazine cover story on the subject declared that, quote, company paid egg freezing will be the great equalizer. The reporter quoted a source who worked in tech, who said, I have insurance policies in every other area of my life, my condo, my car, my work insurance. This is my body and arguably the most important thing that you could ever have in your life. Why wouldn't I at least protect that asset? Women who freeze their eggs report in overwhelming numbers that doing so has made them feel empowered. Yet many of them seem to be motivated by romantic rather than professional ambitions. They say they are worried about climbing the career ladder than they are about finding love. In 2011, Vogue profiled a willowy 35-year-old media company executive who had just frozen her eggs. She stressed the benefits that doing so would bring her while dating. Leah knew she was coming dangerously close to the age when eligible men might search her eyes for desperation. That seemingly clock is ticking vibe. Freezing my eggs is my little secret. I want to feel like there's a backup plan. In 2013, the journalist Sarah Elizabeth Richards published Motherhood Rescheduled. The book follows 5 women through the process. The author says that she herself is overjoyed at the pressure that having done so takes off. Egg freezing soothed my regret for frittering away my 20s with someone I didn't want to have children with, and for wasting more years in my 30s with a person who wasn't sure they even wanted children. It took away the punishing pressure to seek a new mate and helped me find love again at age 42. This makes egg freezing sound less like a tool for workplace equality than an expensive means to prolong the search for Prince Charming. Evangelists for egg freezing suggest that the ultimate empowerment for women would be to work hard enough to be able to consume conspicuously and wait, dating forever. Can we really trust that good things come to those who plan? In order to earn their happy ending, these women in these stories must be willing to go to any length to make things easy on the men they get involved with, just as they must in order to succeed professionally. The American workforce is now more than half female. The egg freezing really is egg freezing really the best fix that we can come up with for problems that workplace conventions created for men cause for women? Is it not slightly incredible that between policy changes, say healthcare and maternity leave policies like those in other developed countries, and an experimental time freezing technology, American business leaders seem to think that freezing time is the more realistic fix? There just was an article I put out yesterday on Daring Dialogues about one company, I think it was Eli Lilly, who has decided to give women up to 28 weeks leave of maternity leave and to give the men 10 weeks. That's unheard of in American culture. And people see them as setting a new wave for women in the workplace, because as we just learned, almost half of the workplace is now female. So you have to start thinking about how a female body works versus how a male body works with the concept of working. In romance, the final step of planning is to make it seem spontaneous. Whatever she does, a woman on a date must not let her plan show. Richards, the evangelist of egg freezing, rhapsodizes about how the procedure made it possible for her to feel normal on dates. At least it let her feel normal enough to act normal on them. It's a buzzkill on dates when you feel compelled to ask the person sitting across from you, so, do you think you might want kids one day? The go getting women who are cited as advertisements for egg freezing use the language of choice and self empowerment, the same language that Helen Gurley Brown and Virginia Slims used in the 1960s. You've come a long way. Indeed, when you can afford to spend tens of thousands of dollars in order to make your date more comfortable. But in practice, the only choice that egg freezing gives women seems to be the choice to buy into stereotypes that perpetuate gender inequality, specifically to be the one who has to do all the work of courtship, yet hide the effect that it is costing her to do it. It is easy to understand why individual women might want to freeze their eggs, but freezing is never a solution to a problem. Good morning, Lady Evelyn. Good morning, Lady Latoya. On the contrary, it is a way to prolong the existence of a problem. Any apparent problem that a society allows to go on and on must somehow be productive. The purpose of the biological clock has been to make it seem only natural, indeed inevitable, that the burdens of reproducing the world fall almost entirely on women. Another group of women who were receiving a lot of media attention during the heyday of the clock watchers prove it. While 1980s career women fretted about fitting marriage and childbearing into their life plans, authorities constantly criticized the other, younger women for failing to time their pregnancy properly. Enter the teen mom. Now, if you grew up in the 80s and you grew up in the 90s, you knew about the teen mom, you heard about the teen mom, you were terrified of becoming the teen mom, especially if you lived in the hood. That was the anathema. Whatever you do, however you are handling your sexuality, you better not get caught slipping, or you were going to become the teen mom. My, how times have changed. In the 80s and the 90s, it would have been unthinkable to have a television show celebrating the ups and the downs and the trials of teen mothers. But I suppose it became a cool phenomenon because now we have white teenage girls on television being held up as teen mothers and celebrated and celebritized. But oh, when it was black teen moms in the hood, it was a whole other vibe and persona being given to it. And none of this is in the book, by the way. I'm just making note of how times have changed. So enter the teen mom. Around the same time that the story of the biological clock broke, policymakers and media outlets started reporting an epidemic of teen pregnancies, also known as young black females having too many children, and we got to control that population. A press release from the President's Commission on Population Growth, exactly, they were the heroes in black teen girl statistics. You nailed it. A press release from the President's Commission on Population Growth and the American Future announced that the rate of teenage pregnancies tripled between 1971 and 1976. The number of teens who became pregnant every year hovered around 1 million for most of the 1980s, then spiked 20% around the turn of the decade. Now, many people do not realize that the teenage rate of pregnancy has actually dropped overall and is continuing to drop in the African American black community. But you wouldn't know it. You wouldn't know it based on media unless you actually started doing some of the research yourself. Okay? In policy circles and in the press, good morning, Life Transitions. In policy circles and in the press, the panic escalated. Yet almost all the mainstream reports on these shocking statistics omitted one important detail. Teen birth rates were falling. While nearly 10% of the girls who were teens in the 1950s had their first child before reaching 20, in the 1980s, this figure was closer to about 5%. It was actually the rate of teen marriage that was going down. What was shocking was not that teens were having sex, but that girlfriends were not staying with their boyfriends who fathered their children. In 1950, 13% of teen births were non-marital. In 2000, 79% were. A culture of increasing sexual permissiveness may have played a role, but the economy surely did too. In the 1970s, the shotgun wedding, everybody remember the shotgun wedding? Meaning if you get my daughter pregnant, you better marry her. And I'm going to take you to the courthouse, or I'm going to take you to the backyard and you're going to marry her and I'll be standing there holding a shotgun. The shotgun wedding option that so many teens had been forced to take in the 1950s was no longer on the table. If a girl got pregnant in the steady era, going steady era, the father could reasonably expect to find a job that could support her and their family. No longer. In a decade of double-digit inflation, stagnating wages, and unemployment, the solution to teen pregnancy was not marriage at the time. Despite all the evidence to the contrary, the conservatives who gained political power during the Reagan and Bush years insisted that it was not also a solution was not to teach comprehensive sex education or access to contraception and abortion. Republicans systematically block access to any of the means that have been shown to reduce teen pregnancy. And now they're back in power. Only this time they're more radicalized because it's Republicans plus white supremacists plus white nationalists. And their whole agenda is preserving the white race. So white women, you can just hang it up if you're thinking about any options of reducing pregnancy, whether it's teen pregnancy or any other pregnancy, because their goal is to get your population numbers up, which means they have to come up with policies to control and restrict the ways in which you can deal with not getting pregnant, because they want you to get pregnant, because in their minds, the population is dwindling and dying, and we need more babies. I've seen several politicians, white males, that have openly come out and said, our population is dwindling and we need more babies. So what does that mean for you as a white female? It means that they have to begin to create policies that are going to restrict you from doing anything to stop you from having children. So if that means contraceptions for everyone, they will do it. If that means shutting down every abortion clinic in the country, they will do it. All right. I think Oklahoma now has a bill on the table to make it a crime for you to commit abortion in Oklahoma. I think you can actually, they want to give you the death penalty if you have an abortion, because that is how serious they feel about you taking the lives of children and causing their population to dwindle in the United States. All right, so all of this is tied together. This is not an endorsement of abortion. I am just stating facts as to why abortion is on the agenda to cut it out. Okay? All right. A consensus emerged that instead, the best way to solve the crisis was to teach younger women to manage their lives better. None of this teaching was really centered around men or young boys and their responsibility around fathering. All of the education was mainly geared toward girls and telling them to just keep their legs closed. But where's the teaching for the young men on how to treat and respect a young lady's legs being closed? Okay. All right. And so authorities started telling teen girls growing up in poor households, all right, that they had something in common with the career woman, that they too had a plan, only for the opposite outcome. There's a long and troubling history of advocates of birth control appealing to eugenics. If you don't know what eugenics is about, I did some study on eugenics a couple of years ago when I was just researching and trying to understand it for myself. And one of the things about eugenics is about creating an ideal population, creating a population that produces the best of the best crop of children. And usually most of the eugenicists were racist. So they didn't even factor in people of color being considered a part of the best population to have. So many of their plans were centered around how can we get rid of, or how can we control the population of people of color while at the same time increasing how many children are being born to the European quote unquote races. All right. In the 1910s, Margaret Sanger, the founder of Planned Parenthood, tried to persuade authorities to legalize contraception by arguing that it would stop undesirable immigrants from reproducing. So for all of the black women who are out here touting Planned Parenthood as something wonderful for black women, the entire point of Planned Parenthood started out as an offshoot of eugenics projects. Now, if you go look up members of the Eugenics Society, you're going to be very surprised at who is on that society and who sits on that board making these kinds of decisions. I won't tell you who's on the board because I want you to go and look at it for yourself. All right? So because I've seen who's on that board, when these people talk about any plans for humankind, I don't trust them. Because they sit on a board whose foundation is about eliminating certain populations that they consider undesirable to be in the earth. All right? So Margaret Sanger initially said, hey, if we introduce abortion, if we introduce legalizing contraception, some white women will come in and try it out. But the goal is really not about white women coming to have abortions and using contraceptions. We're going to legalize it for everybody, but we're going to weaponize it and point it in the direction of immigrant and minority communities and encourage them to go to the clinics, because we want the immigrants and the minorities to stop reproducing. So, again, I'm going to challenge you. I want you to go and I want you to look up where the Planned Parenthood centers are located. I did this when I was in Tallahassee. I did this when I was in South Florida. Most of the Planned Parenthood centers are located close to or in the heart of minority communities, Hispanic and Black. So you can't tell me, that you're not specifically targeting certain communities to take these services on. I want to make it close enough for you to walk to it. At the school that I taught at, just picture this. I taught at an alternative school for all girls, many of whom were coming from very adverse conditions and situations. Some of them were allowed to attend our school pregnant. So imagine me for 5 years teaching at an all-girls school, encouraging girls to continue their education who were already in dire circumstances, not in the best circumstances to conceive. And directly across the street from our school was an abortion clinic. Yeah. You don't know warfare until you have to deal with that. You're over here teaching life, preserve life, abstinence. Yes, you may be pregnant now, but you have a decision to make. We couldn't teach them what decision to make. We could only give them the information for them to make a choice. And sadly, some of those girls chose to leave our school and go right across the street. We couldn't stop everybody. All right? But there were people out there who would stand in front of those abortion clinics, and thankfully they weren't the kind of Christians that were telling them you're evil, you're wicked, and you're going to hell. Thankfully, they were the kind of Christians who were standing out there not impeding traffic to an abortion clinic, but they were standing in front saying, hey, this is a life. This is a different option. Here's some information. Here's some alternatives to what you could do besides ending a life. I can appreciate that. All right? So, Planned Parenthood, I often call it the plan for you to never be a parent from the hood. That's what it looks like to me. That's what it sounds like to me. When I look at the research, when I look at where Planned Parenthood is situated, if this was really about giving everybody an option, then they wouldn't be planning these centers directly in the heart of African American communities and Hispanic communities. I would see them everywhere if that was the goal, but that's not the goal. All right? In the 1950s, the biologists who invented the oral contraceptive pill conducted dangerous clinical trials in Puerto Rico. They justified this choice by saying that the population needed to be reduced. In the 1970s, Latina activists claimed that 35% of that generation had been sterilized. In case you all didn't know it, the U.S. often does this with countries. Sometimes it will ask other countries that in order for us to help you financially, in order for us to give you financial aid to your country, they may be in a very dire situation, and they may reach out to the United States for help. And the United States says, in order for us to give you aid to your country, you must sterilize your women. And this is why some Latin countries have said, no, And this is why some Latin countries have refused aid from the United States, because the aid comes with a caveat. The aid comes with a, what's the word I'm looking for? The aid comes with a catch. So when you look at other countries and you're like, well, why won't they take the aid, or why won't the United States just help them? Because there's a catch with the help. And the Latin countries have said, oh, no, 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 no. We understand that the strength of our country is our people. The strength of our country is our human resources. So you want us to accept aid that could possibly put us into debt, while at the same time sterilizing our women, cutting off us being able to produce future humans to work our country. And again, I say no. So you have to understand some of the economic policies that are put out here. It's more to it than just a country refusing help. Campaigns against teen pregnancy may have been less overtly exploitative, but they had similar aims. While rich women were told that they would never be happy if they deprived themselves of the joys of motherhood, poor women were warned not to have children no matter what. So you see, there is a dichotomy of messaging happening. For poor women, they're warned against don't have kids, 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 children, excuse me. And for wealthier women, it's painted as the ultimate joy. So let me see if what she just said, let me see if it's true. I got you some magazines. I went out, got some. All right. Popular celebrity magazines. Let's take a look at the cover. All right. Here we go. Let's see. What does that one say? Pregnant, just smiling couple. Smiling couple. How we saved our marriage. Therapy, confessions, and no texting. All right. Another, where is it? Unfortunately, the only couple on the front here is about the tragic death of a black woman. Yeah. All right, let's try another one. Life and Style, another celebrity magazine. Let's see what we got. Inside the Royals' Private World. What do I see on the cover? I see marriage, I see family, I see newborns, and I see one on the way. Okay? How she saved a marriage. And one story about the ring is off, but we know it'll probably come back on in a few days because they'll kiss and make up. All right? So just wanted to make a point. While black women are being told, I'm every woman, it's all in me. Oh, oh, oh. All right? That's what our community is being given. I'm just telling you, there's another messaging going on. Now, let's look at Essence magazine. This is Essence, November 2012. See the messaging? Do you see the messaging? Anybody else see the messaging? Anybody else notice the messaging? Am I the only one who notices the messaging? I'm just trying to help us to think. Do you see the messaging, Prophet? I see the messaging. All right. So let's see. Let's look at our messaging here. It's our time to heal, the past, present, and future of Me Too. So we get so we get a whole story on sexual abuse and sexual assault. Okay? Why we must vote. 30 hot salons to get your hair done at. Black women, 10 black women rocking the tech world. And Tessa Thompson, her fashion and her style. Okay? All right. Now, let's be a little more detailed. All right. How many times on the cover of this magazine do you see the word family or marriage? I'm gonna bring it closer so you can look. Okay. How many times do you see the word family or marriage? Somebody give me a number. Okay. All right. How many times do you see the word man on this cover? And I'll be fair to Essence because Essence does do articles on men. They do some articles on men's, usually like men's health. All right. I'm gonna bring these magazines back again. Okay. How many times do you see a man's name on this cover? How many times do you see the word marriage or family on this cover? All right. Just want us to understand the power of media and the power of messaging. Again, how many times do you see the word marriage on this cover? All right. I have a whole degree in this, by the way. All right. Next magazine is another Essence. Okay. This is January 2019 issue. It's a double issue. Okay. Who's on the cover? She is successful. She is strong. She is independent. She is married. But she is also put up as the supreme ideal. Okay? The supreme ideal. So this issue is about White House confessions, finding your Barack. I don't need to find my Barack. I need to find the person that God has ordained for my life. Living free. And there's a book excerpt. All right. And then the other piece in here is about economic empowerment, about buying black. All right. But even though, get this, even though it has her on the cover, notice it does not say former first lady. Notice it does not use the word marriage. It says finding your Barack. So we have to understand when people say these things don't matter, you have to understand the power of media, the power of visuals, the power of words, and the power of messaging. All right? What is the underlying message? Because believe it or not, when you pick up a magazine, your brain is reading those messages and your brain is internalizing the messages that are not spoken. They're being given to you visually. They're not spoken. That is the power of media. All right? And we just only looked at 4 magazines. But if you go to any bookstore, I mean, you go to Barnes and Nobles, you go to Books A Million, go in the magazine section and see how much imaging is geared toward white females and how much imaging is geared toward black women, and compare what kinds of articles are put out for black women and what kinds of articles are put out generally for white women. All right. You have to pay attention to the messaging. Let's get back to this book. We got 10 minutes. In 1980, the Girls Club of Santa Barbara decided that the mostly black and Latina teen girls they served were in dire need of instruction of life planning. The board members decided that they had to raise the level of their consciousness of today's world as it really is. In that world, these young women were extremely unlikely to marry men who would be able to support them. They would earn about 59 cents to every dollar that their male peers earned. And if they headed their own households, they faced 70% odds of living in poverty. To make the most of their slim chance at a good life, they needed to develop a flexible and aware mentality. To help them do so, the directors of the Girls Club developed a life planning curriculum called Choices. Choices, a teen woman's journal for self awareness and personal planning, was published in July 1983. Festooned with pastel flowers, it was marketed as both a textbook and a trade book. When schools purchased Choices, they also received teacher training materials. Because the creators wanted Choices to be used in public schools, they developed a companion program called for boys called Challenges. The pagination of the two volumes was coordinated. They used different gender pronouns and slightly different examples so that public schools could use them together to teach co-ed classes. By 1985, they had been adopted for life planning programs in 22 states. They offered a picture of formal gender equality of separate but equal. Challenges for choices, challenges for boys, choices for girls. Choices aimed to teach girls all about career opportunities that were now open to women to get them into the right frame of mind to seize hold of these opportunities. One must remain flexible enough to change, but once the basic decision-making skills are learned, the woman is empowered to make sound choices about anything. Pages of worksheets allowed students to conduct attitude inventories on a wide variety of subjects. You were asked to tick off an option from strongly agree to strongly disagree. Questions like, if a working couple buys a house, the husband should make the payments. At work, women are entitled to use sick leave for maternity leave. Men should not cry. You tried to answer questions like, how much does a dress cost, to realize how much you would have to earn. The self-knowledge that you gained from the process was supposed to help you choose wisely in all aspects of life. Chapter 7 was devoted to family planning. The teaching material said that by the time the student reached this stage, she has learned to create a decision-making model for when to have a baby. She has, through values clarification, thought about childcare options. Through an exercise in role playing, the student learns how much commitment a family requires. The young woman usually concludes that she is not ready emotionally or financially for the responsibility of a child. The authors added that by the time she completed the family planning unit, the student has learned to be assertive, to be helpful, and to have skills in responses that prevent pregnancy. To have skills in responses that prevent pregnancy simply means that we have either taught her to seek an abortion or we've taught her to seek a contraception to prevent her pregnancy. Being assertive enough to avoid being coerced into sex sounds like a good skill to learn. But you have to wonder what the corresponding page on the boys' books said. Did their book say, try not to rape your girlfriend? The emphasis on planning and choice put the burden again on policing young women, precisely where it had been in the steady era. Only now, these women were also responsible for policing their bodies, holding back potential rapists, and preparing themselves for fear. Throughout the 1980s and 90s, life planning techniques continued to be incorporated into the curricula in a wide range of public and private schools. These programs told young people to look at their romantic lives as part of a grand strategy. More importantly, they taught students to think that any deviation from that plan was a personal failing. A future of debt and loneliness continues to be the main theme of outreach aimed at teenage girls who might consider becoming mothers. An ad campaign that the New York City Human Resources Administration plastered on subways back in 2013 confronted them directly. Got a good job? One baby asked, crying. I cost thousands of dollars each year. Think being a teen parent won't cost you? The text slapped diagonally across the bottom reads, expect to spend more than $10,000 a year to raise a child. Another ad featured a tiny girl with an index finger pressed against her lips. She is looking off frame right, as if she is embarrassed for you. Honestly, Mom, the thought bubble above her head says, chances are he won't stay with you. What happens to me? The banner confirms 90% of teen parents don't marry each other. So our culture sends very different messages to rich and poorer women about motherhood. Articles aimed at middle and upper middle class women rhapsodize about the incomparable joy of having children and how that joy will add to their life. Poor women, particularly women of color, are warned that having a baby will trap them into a lifetime of poverty. Both claims may be true. Motherhood may be a joyful experience if you can afford it. It may be ruinous if you cannot. But in both cases, the emphasis on planning serves to make the reproduction of the world look like a lifestyle choice, a purely private concern. The imperative to line up your life perfectly suggests that it is moral as well as practical to do so. This fiction, that it is female nature to take full responsibility of reproduction, places a tremendous burden on women alone, and then it strains many romantic relationships. The fiction, that men and women who desire sexual and romantic relations are hardwired to want opposing things, is not good for anyone. I bet you know at least one bachelor who has spent decades unable to commit to any relationship despite professing that he yearns to do so. I know several, the writer says. It turns out that even if cultural stereotypes say that a man can date around endlessly without lowering his stock, of course the experience will change him, just as it changes the partners whom stereotypes say he can dispose of at no cost to himself. The success of the 2007 Judd Apatow comedy Knocked Up suggests how desperately men as well as women may want to get out of this cycle. In it, the young hotshot career woman played by Katherine Heigl spends a wild night celebrating a recent promotion, falls into bed with a loser played by Seth Rogen, and several weeks later finds herself in a predicament that the title suggests. The first time I heard it summarized, I thought it was a horror movie. If we take the leap of faith that her character would not sprint to the nearest abortion clinic, we get to enjoy this fantasy in which two unappealing people can fumble their way toward happiness without ever having to make any joint decisions whatsoever. The unplanned pregnancy is not presented as a disaster. It is a godsend, especially for Seth Rogen's character. Stereotypes say that the kind of man child that he was in the movie, unemployed, directionless, is terrified of the responsibilities of monogamy, marriage, and fatherhood. But it is clear to me he, not Heigl, who is saved by their chance encounter. It is him. Knocking up a stranger rescues the man child from himself. The movie makes it clear that if for whatever reason the woman played by Katherine Heigl wanted to have a deadbeat child at this juncture, she could have managed that on her own. This is precisely what makes her the hero in the film. Indeed, if we thought that she was desperate to snag Seth Rogen, the movie would be depressing. It is her willingness to take on all the work of reproducing the world that is supposed to make her worthy of happiness she stumbles into. She earns a man and a family by proving that she would be willing to do everything herself. Is it worth it? The greatest risk run by the clock watcher who plans every day of her life, fearing that any misstep or wrong choice will derail her, is being disappointed. How many career women have grown into exactly the women they planned, only to find that the future they thought they wanted was not what they expected? How could it not be disappointing after so much work? Like the housewife of Betty Friedman's Feminine Mystique, I imagine the career woman who returns to work 2 weeks after giving birth dismayed. The new feminine mystique has created a new problem with no name that feels familiar. Is this all? Is this what all of that was for? So, lots to think about, lots to consider. But what we do know is this model that people are jumping into, this model that people are stepping into, if you are a believer in Christ, the model has some problems. I always tell people, if you want to get some idea of relationship skills, relationship expectations, we talked about this last time, go read the scriptures. Specifically, go read what Jesus said about marriage. I don't really tell people to go read what Paul said about marriage, and you know why? Let me tell you why as we close today. Because Paul was speaking to a specific time period. Paul was speaking to a specific people who thought they were going to die at any moment. Now, if you think you're going to die at any moment, then go read 1 Corinthians 7. All right? But 1 Corinthians 7 was written in a time when Christians were being heavily persecuted, and they were not sure if you were going to be the next in line to be killed. So Paul was giving some specific relationship instructions based on the urgency and the intensity of the persecution in the times, okay? But go through scripture, as we talked about before. See what kinds of things were happening with the marriages. See how they got into marriage. See how the women responded. See how the men responded. There's a lot to be learned in the scriptures concerning the concept of marriage. The problem is, sometimes we just don't go there. We go automatically to, this is where many people get their relationship advice from. This is where many people get their relationship advice from. And then when your life doesn't turn out like theirs, and what they're doing doesn't work for you, then we go to scripture and we say, oh, so they were encouraging this, but the scripture says do this and you will prosper. All right? So it depends on where you're getting your source information from. That does make the difference in your relationships. This has been another episode of Daring Dialogues, and I've been your host today, Shantae Charles. I hope that I've given you something to make you think. All right? Remember, light is the most daring opposition to darkness, so please go out today and be light. Take care, and God bless.